Our gutless, weak leaders have decided to not recognise a Palestinian state. We are one of the few deplorable nations still holding out. Even Keir Starmer and Anthony Albanese had more of a spine than our leadership. It is a national embarrassment. The announcement was as spineless as it gets, and Luxon was so spineless he did not even have the guts to give the announcement himself. Pathetic and shameful. Instead of being at the UN event like many world leaders, he was sitting on his ass at an All Blacks game. What a lazy slob. If he was working for someone else, he would have been fired ages ago. This embarrassing clown has no place in the beehive. Our moral character and our international image have just taken a massive hit. We have been a principled voice in the past, but not anymore. We criticised appeasement before it was popular, we led the anti-nuclear movement, we refused to participate in the Iraq War, we have been a principled voice. The spineless, useless government chose to abandon that legacy and damage our international credibility. This is a critical issue, and it will alienate many of the rising developing countries that sympathise with Palestine. We are on the losing side of this issue. At a time when Israel is brutally attempting to stomp out Palestine, recognition of the Palestinian state is more critical than ever. It applies diplomatic pressure to Israel, it defies their brutal, murderous campaign. We need to recognise Palestine today. Some say we need to wait for Palestine to become peaceful and stable. That is not going to happen until the bombs stop falling. And the bombs will not stop falling until Israel faces massive international pressure. Recognising Palestine applies that pressure. The government said their priority is a ceasefire, but these are empty words. They have not even hit Israel with sanctions. This talk is cheap. They claim we cannot recognise Palestine because there are terrorists in the Palestinian government. So why then do we recognise Russia, Israel and Saudi Arabia? The governments of these countries are crawling with depraved terrorists. Yet you can still find their embassies in Wellington. Why the double standard? The inconsistency is laughable. Why is Palestine held to such a high standard? There is no good reason to not recognise Palestine. They say doing so would reward Hamas. But failing to do so rewards Israel's even more brutal terrorism. They say we should not recognise Palestine as a state because Palestine does not have control of all its territory. Ukraine does not have control of all its territory. Should we cut relations with Ukraine? China does not have control of all its territory. They claim Taiwan, but they do not govern it. Should we cut ties with China? This is the logical conclusion of this mindless logic. And this logic is dangerous. Refusing to recognise a state that cannot control all its territory. This logic serves only to encourage wars of conquest by rewarding annexation. There is no good argument against recognising Palestine. Every argument is inconsistent, every argument is bad. We should recognise Palestine. And if we are intent on not doing so, the least we can do is cut ties with Israel. If we recognise neither, this could be forgiven, and every reason to not recognise Palestine could just as easily be applied to Israel. But instead, we insist we are above recognising Palestine while recognising Israel, a country that commits all the same crimes, just on a far greater scale. Our cowardly, spineless government will abandon morality to satisfy the USA. It is disgusting, it is shameful. This is not simply a matter of doing the right thing, it is a matter of national interest. I want to live in a strong, principled country, not a weak, amoral US client state. And this concerns the rules-based order. In case you didn't notice, we are a small, weak country. Defending the rules-based order is crucial, this is the only thing upholding our sovereignty. Israel's belligerent conduct is a threat to the rules-based order. They threaten our geostrategic and economic interests by making conflict a normal part of international relations. They have bombed 6 or 7 Middle Eastern countries. They have attacked Syria and the West Bank without even the slightest hint of a provocation. They annex the territory of their neighbours. They openly want a greater Israel. They normalise conflict. They risk turning an economically sensitive region into a massive war zone. They are our enemy. Israel wants to live in a might makes right international order. That is what they believe in. For a small weak country like New Zealand, nothing is more dangerous than that vision. Staunchly opposing Israel is essential. They represent a form of international politics that is enormously dangerous to us. So the government's decision is not simply immoral, but even from the perspective of sheer self-interest, it is utterly idiotic. It is self-destructive. It represents the encouragement of things that pose an existential threat to us. If we do not stand by Palestine, then how can we expect anyone to stand next to us if ever we were aggressed upon? We would look like a joke even asking for assistance. And some assume nobody would ever aggress on us. Well, that is a very mistaken view. The traditional alliances are crumbling, the rules-based order is dying. The world is going to become a very dangerous place. And in that world, a small weak country like us is in a very precarious position. You may say nobody has a good reason to attack us, but no warmonger ever lets the lack of a good reason stop them. This is a national security issue. The rules-based order is the only thing protecting us.